Welcome to E3, Engage and Empower with Empathy, a podcast brought to you by the Empathy Collective, a consulting firm that helps business leaders inspire change, one conversation at a time. I'm Rebecca Dhrimaj, your host and the founder of the Empathy Collective, and we are building a community of like-minded leaders and experts who all share the same passion, taking care of people at work. Whether you are a blue-collar worker or white-collar worker, small business owner or corporate executive, you belong in this community. When you hold a beautifully designed product in your hands, something that just works, you rarely think about the empathy behind it. But for today's guest, empathy isn't just a value, it's a foundation of great design. Mike Laut is the founder and CEO of Laut Design, one of the largest creative firms in the Southeast of the United States. His team helps companies transform bold ideas into manufacturable, market-ready products that are as functional as they are beautiful. But what makes his work and his leadership stand out is the belief that true innovation starts with understanding people. The users who will experience the product, the clients who entrust him with their vision, and the creative minds who bring it all to life. In this conversation, Mike opens up about the role of vulnerability in leadership, how empathy fuels creativity under pressure, and what it takes to build a studio culture where designers don't just make great products, they become greater versions of themselves. This is E3, Engage and Empower with Empathy. Well, welcome to the show today, Mike. It is so nice to do this in person. I usually do these virtually, so this is a special treat. You happen to be in my backyard here in Raleigh, North Carolina.
For me too. Thank you.
So this is a lot of fun. And what's even more fun, so you can kind of get a feel for the vibe of this office environment where we're sitting. But I had the pleasure of taking a tour of Laut Design, where Mike is the CEO and founder, and it is so much fun. It's like a playground for engineers. I was telling Mike that I could see my husband coming in here and being like a kid in a candy shop, because there's like an entire downstairs space that's dedicated to tools and workshopping. And there's a whole room just full of tools, which I know my 5-year-old boy would love. And then upstairs is more of the office space. So it's a really unique environment here, a lot of creativity happening. Let's talk about how you got into this very niche field of industrial design to begin with.
Sure. I think one thing I feel compelled to touch on right away is how when people say, if I brought my husband here, he'd never leave, or my 5-year-old would love this place. And I reflect on that and I think that's a good thing, that people think at their most childish, they would want to be here. And I've always appreciated that, because I think it's probably true of me and most of the people here, that there's a general vibe that we didn't have to get a real job, like we fooled everybody. So I like that seems to come through. How I ended up here, I had a childhood as an art kid, getting in trouble in class, doodling in the margins, and very stereotypical storybook kind of thing. I had an absolutely horrible formal art education in school, which was really probably the best thing for me in some ways. I was at war with my art teacher. We won't get into the details, but I used every opportunity I could to check the box on the assignment in the most backhanded way possible and do a good job at the wrong thing and frustrate her to no end. But what I learned through that also was a bunch of art skills to do a good job at driving her crazy. And so I will be thankful. My parents had the foresight also to put me into an art class privately outside of school, which I hated at first. I didn't want to do anything when I was a kid, and I've used that experience raising our kids now, because they don't want to do anything either. I went to this private art lesson probably once a week or something, and I loved it. As soon as I started getting rolling, this woman was very talented herself, really open, had all the tools, this beautiful room in this old Victorian house. I loved it. Around the end of high school, I applied to design school at NC State, because I thought, well, my whole childhood, everybody has given me either a hard time or encouragement for this thing that makes me a little bit unique among all the classmates I had. And then I also grew up with my dad, who is a surgeon, but he's very mechanical, as I've found a lot of them to be. And we built cars in the garage. We maintained and added on to the house ourselves. He had tools from childhood that he still had in this beautiful collection. There was a part of me that felt like I kind of owed it to him and my parents. My mom drove the art education. He drove the mechanical. I kind of owed it to them to use it and not get into something else I might have been pretty good at. I think it came with a little bit of guilt, the thought of not doing something like that. So I got very lucky, got into the College of Design here in Raleigh, moved from Fayetteville to Raleigh, and I'm never going back. I dove in immediately and absolutely loved every piece of that culture, the studio. I love that I went to what felt like fun instead of a class. It felt collaborative and energetic. And I watched my roommates kind of suffer through pharmacy prep and forest products. And there's nothing wrong with those, but they weren't for me. So my junior year, I was so in love with that type of work that I started doing freelance work. I thought, firstly, I don't like starving. So I need money coming in somehow. And if I'm going to do that, it might as well be pursuing a thing that I'm trying to build a career later in life to do. So I started doing freelance work, anything I could find out of my crappy apartment and at the coffee table or whatever. And I realized pretty quickly that if I tried, I could get as much work as I could handle pretty fast. And I was busy all the time after class was over. Mm. And at one point, I hit a moment where I realized I can't do all this. In fact, I'm going to overcommit if I say yes, but I really don't like saying no. I worked hard to go find this business and, meet with a person. And now they're telling me they need a much bigger thing. And I didn't want to say no. So I went into my design studio class the following day and I started, I'm going to call it recruiting with a lowercase r, friends of mine, talent that I was within arm's reach of. And before I knew it, I had a good amount of my classmates working with me collaboratively when we weren't in class together. If you fast forward 18 years to where we are today, we've got a team of 22. We have 12,000 square feet in this building. It's beyond any dream I had, for sure. It feels very similar, actually, to those days sometimes, not all the time. But I have people here today that were in that class that have built a career here for, in some cases, like 15 years. Mm. And it's just been an absolute blast.
What a fascinating journey. And I love how you just let that happen organically by
I'm summarizing
your inclination to say yes to everything. And I would just love to understand, how did you get to that point of freelancing on your own to building 18 years later a team of 22? What did that process look like? Because you have to have a certain mindset as a solopreneur versus, then building a team and delegating and empowering a large group of people. So how did that look like for you? And were there some mindset shifts that had to happen during that process?
There were, for sure. I think anytime you're assigned into, people naturally find their role. You have people who sit before and don't do anything. You have the people who boss everybody around. There's the whole spectrum of roles that people fit into. And I think that I didn't have this in mind then, but on reflecting on it, most times I got in a group. It frustrated me when there wasn't a plan. And since nobody had a plan, I decided that, okay, fine, I guess I have to make a plan. And at least now we're doing something. And what I didn't really intend was, let's go be the leader of that group. Mm. But what organically happens is my own personal angst or issues or whatever lead to frustration over not getting organized. And getting creative people organized is, I'll write a book one day that no one will want to read about everything that takes to do well. You're talking about people who are so much more talented than I am, who are so much more capable than what I can do. But what they don't have is a really good understanding of what our customer feels and what they're frustrated with and what they've been working on. What the outcome needs to be, how to time bound it, how to deal with money and a calendar and communication and travel logistics and all of these things that I didn't struggle to do. So it's been hard for me not being in the design work elbow deep the way I always was and running a business that does design instead, because they're two completely different things. But I think I'll be forever grateful for the fact that I came from design training and education, not business school. And so making it by faking it is real. There's definitely been an aspect of that. But I also think that acknowledging that there were things I needed to learn the way everyone learns things when they get into the work world. Mine were how to get work organized, how to get this wild talent that I had within arm's reach coordinated and all on the same page and on a mission. And we get to do this really fun work if we can figure out how to make it just a little bit systematic. And they hate systems. I didn't like systems, but I realized that without them, we would have to go get a real job. And I didn't want to do that. And I think that still very much holds true today. They hate the idea that we have to account for our time. They would much rather have, and I would much rather have, just a calendar deadline. But the problem is that each project with a budget, it'll never not have a budget. And that budget dictates how much time we have to spend. And if we don't take on multiple things in parallel, we can't have a big team. We can't afford it. And if we take on things in parallel, we have to figure out how much of each thing to do, keep all the balls in the air, which one needs to be tended to when. And we can't do that if we don't know how much time we're spending. I can explain exactly why we run that the way we do, all the while knowing they don't care. And they don't care because the only reason I care is because we have to. I'd so much rather not. And so retirement will be fun one day when all that goes away. But for now, we've got to be organized.
Well, it sounds to me like you have had to exercise a lot of empathy for your employees to really put yourself in their shoes as a creative yourself and understand why they're pushing back on systems and processes and tracking hours and things like that. And I'm sure you've been able to use empathy as a way to guide them along this process and adopt these habits. So let's talk a little bit about empathy and how you've infused that into your work. Do you have an example of where you've used it in a way that you were able to dig into the customer's problems even deeper? And you even mentioned that this is a skill that you had to teach your team that as creatives, they didn't necessarily automatically detect that customer problem and have that radar on. Do you have an example where you were able to really collectively as a team use empathy to uncover a customer issue and combine that with your creative juices to really end up with a breakthrough either for yourselves or for the client?
Yeah. So firstly, it's involved in the example I already mentioned, where to get our team to be a team at all, to even do the work, requires empathy into what makes them tick and what they're interested in. So there's the team side of making sure that you hear the phrase, meet them where they are. We may not be able to do that all the way every day. We need to pull them toward us a little. But once we get that right, through empathy into what their day-to-day looks like, their creative passion, what they're interested in, their hobbies. I assign work to people, or I have our PMs do that on purpose if their personality makes them a good fit for it, or if they're really into music and this involves the design of an instrument. If they're into automotive and this thing has wheels on it, doesn't matter if it's a shopping cart or a vehicle. And then getting them to understand empathy for the end user. Design education helped us with that right out of the gate, because human-centered design, which is a big part of the design process we follow, it dictates that you have to remove the ego that you might inherently have of assuming, well, we're going to design scuba diving equipment. I've been scuba diving before, so I know what I want, and that would be great. And then you remember, but I did it in a certain way, a certain time of year, in a certain geography. I am of a certain demographic, a level of experience, some amount of purchasing power that is or is not as much as somebody else's. I have style preferences and what durable, reliable, safe looks like to me. But that doesn't mean that that is shared by that whole market. And so when we design things for people, which is all we do, understanding those people first is critical. It has to happen as a first step, even if our customer doesn't agree. And we run into that all the time too, where we leverage empathy for our customer in wanting to use the dollar the most effective way. Well, they want the output. It's like they don't want the labor pains, they just want the baby. And it doesn't work that way, because if we just start putting pen to paper, which we love doing too, we are designing the wrong thing. I know that because of all of the times when we've seen a project take a totally different route than what we thought it would right out of the gate. That's usually a good sign that our research did what it should. A concrete example from a client project, we were hired by actually a local major corporation that happens to have a presence in the Raleigh area to work on a new modern data collecting tech enabled sprayer. So you think about treating your lawn, spraying around the household, having a pest control person come to the house. Everyone has seen them carry around a big clunky metal pump tank where they carry it by the handle, they set it on the ground, they have to bend over, they pump air pressure into this tank to pressurize what's in it. They've already mixed whatever it contains, and they're going to go spray it around your foundation or under your cabinets or whatever it is. The problem with that that was brought to us, I loved. If they've already mixed up this amount of chemical, but they don't use it all, where does it go? And the answer was what you might think. They dump it on the ground. They put it outside. They throw it on the street. They throw it in the back of a pickup truck, and the heat ruins the formulation. It sits in there and nobody knows what it is. And so it gets dumped down a drain somewhere. None of those are good uses of something that they paid a lot of money for. That's not great for the environment. Shouldn't be used in the wrong place, can't be in the hands of children, and on and on. How can we design a sprayer that doesn't do that? What we want to know is a certain volume of water that this gets mixed with to do its job. Who sprayed that? On what day? In what location? How much of it did they use? On what client account? All the data that would be valuable to the pest control company that would then also be valuable to the people who sell the chemical that they're dispensing. Immediately upon realizing that one was easy. Nobody is a pest control operator on our team, a PCO. So nobody had the ego to think, well, we know what this should be because no one's really done that job before. Job one is to go do the job. And we organized ride-alongs with the 3 major pest control companies in this area where we, like a bunch of dorks, took our clipboard and our notepad, and we went and followed and shadowed and asked a million questions and probably annoyed them to death, all in the pursuit of finding out, we have ideas, but are they the right ones? Tell me about when you would put this on, when you would take it off. When it's not on your back, where would it go? Should it be on your back? Should it be a belt? Should it be a sash? Should it be handheld still? Can we free up one of your hands? Because I have to carry the tank and the sprayer wand, with the old product. If I'm wearing it on my back, I just got a hand back and I could do things with that, like open a cabinet. That empathy for the pest control operator, it ended in a place that I really appreciated, where any job wants to be taken seriously, professionally, and you want to look like you are appropriate for the job. There's a saying in mountain biking, look good, feel good, ride good. People wear fashion items to ride a bike through the woods. What a stupid idea. And yet they still do that, and they'll continue on doing it in every type of sport. Because if you feel like you look good, it puts you in a mindset of being good, doing well. And it's no different with these people that in a lot of cases, they are treated like a blue collar job. They're a bug guy or gal. And that's too bad. I mean, they know a ton of chemistry. They know biology. They know all about how houses are built. I don't know those things. I can't do their job. I don't even know where to start. So why don't we, as a society, have a respect for that job? Well, we thought, could this help? Could this device help with that? And the answer is a resounding yes. I mean, what if it's a gorgeous object that looks like a uniform and is very professional? It elevates the aesthetic that they bring to the job. What if? And so that empathy for what it is to be them, it bleeds into everything we did. I mean, the way you hold it, the fatigue over time, the fact that if you fill it with water on a hot day, you can also fill it with ice and water, and it cools me down while I'm going through summer heat in the deep South wearing a heavy backpack, but it's cooling me down. And the converse is true, and we tested it. Using warm water in the winter doesn't hurt anything either. Now this becomes almost like a comfort item for them instead of a burden they have to carry. And it frees up their extra hand to take notes. Then we put a pocket on it to hold their cell phone because they, like anybody, wants that available. There's a bunch of utility that came from these interviews that had nothing to do with where we thought we would go, all from the empathy of understanding that we care about what they care about. And I'll never do that job professionally, but I want to because of everything we learned.
That's incredible, and it's gonna make me think about our pest control service in a very
Yeah.
different way now, because
Yeah.
we actually have a gal who comes to our house, and she is incredibly knowledgeable. I have tremendous respect for her, and I think it's a shame that we would look down on work like that is highly technical and requires a certain level of expertise. So I think it's so cool that you do that level of research and interviewing with the end user and really put yourself in their shoes. And what you are able to uncover, was the client surprised? I'm sure they had an idea in mind of what they wanted the product to look like. And then you went through all these interviews and came
Yeah.
back with feedback.
The client is always surprised, and it's either because they knew that we were going to do research work, but they didn't realize that it was genuinely going to change what this is going to be. They had in mind, just like we did, what it should be. If you think about drawing the icon of an object, not a ton of detail, just the image of how you would describe it, I think our brains are really good at formulating an icon of what a thing will be. When that starts to get challenged correctly, you realize you have to let that go. That image of what we thought we wanted is incorrect. So they're surprised there. The other reason that they're often surprised is that they didn't see the value in doing that because they've never been through that process before, which is fine. Back to the empathy with our team, I have to sometimes convince them they don't realize that they don't want what they think they want. There's a famous Henry Ford quote, or it's attributed to him anyway, where he said, if I asked people what they wanted, they would have said a faster horse. And it's not really what they want, but it's all that they know. Well, have some empathy for them and realize that they don't know how to ask us for our best. They're going to tell us, we don't need to spend time in research. We're just looking for new concepts. In fact, sometimes it's borderline insulting where they're like, just make pretty pictures. Don't let that be off-putting. They don't speak our language, and that's okay because they're in high finance and they're deep in engineering, and that's different from design. They don't know these things like I don't know how to do brain surgery. So don't get upset. So that's kind of where it begins. But what we'll end up doing, whether they know it or not, some of their budget, whatever their budget is, will get used in this way. And when we present our pretty pictures, our concept work, it's not enough for me to say, here it is. What do you think? Looks good, right? If I say, well, here's what we were thinking. We thought that this was going to be purple. And when we did that, we realized that it blends in with its environment too much and people don't actually notice it. And so we evolved it from purple to actually kind of an off blue color. And you can see side by side how now you can notice it a lot easier. Then we realized that people didn't pick it up the way we thought they would. They actually used their non-dominant hand and they only did a 3-finger grip. And so we went ahead and accommodated that and we used color to show where your hand goes. And now it's really obvious that that's what you should do. And now my pretty picture is starting to make sense. Now they're seeing not just what you did, why you did what you did. And so that context comes from research that they didn't know they wanted. They didn't want to pay for, but we used some of their budget for that anyway. And we call it ideation, idea generation. The truth is it's research, then it's ideation. Those ideas have to be born of a license to design a new thing, not just whatever I woke up thinking was cool that day, because that ego will ruin that outcome. The sales will be terrible.
That's fascinating. I love how you're kind of educating the client in a very subtle way, and understanding that, like you said, you're not a brain surgeon, you don't know how to do that. So putting yourself in their shoes again
Right.
and guiding them through the process and leading them to that aha moment. I I would love to shift gears a little bit and talk about what it's like to run a business when things aren't going so well. There's a lot of positivity infused into this podcast, and we talk a lot about taking care of people at
Yeah.
work. But I think what is often not brought to the forefront is when a business is not doing well. How do you maintain that morale, that collective sense of engagement and motivation? You actually talked to me about a fishing project that you did with your team when you were going through a challenging time with your business. Talk a little bit about that and how
Yeah.
you dealt with that.
So we taught ourselves how to fish because it's the way that the business got started to begin with. And what I mean by that is, let's say that you make camping backpacks, and I just think that they're cool. And I go camping and I use that kind of gear, and I wish we got a chance to work together. But you don't know who in the world I am. And I'm just some kid at a crappy college apartment at a coffee table wishing I could work with your brand. And so my solution to that back then was, without you asking, I'm going to draw up what I think you should be doing, or what I know we could do with a challenge if you gave us one. And back then I would print it out, or it would be the actual original drawing. I would put it in an envelope. I would put my nerdy little sticker on it. I would brand it. I would figure out the best shot I had at mailing it to the right person at the right address. And I'd put it in the mail and I would wait. Most of the time, nothing happens. But every once in a while, the phone would ring and they'd say, "Hey, our product manager got this thing in the mail, but we're confused. Did someone request this?" And I am smiling on the other end and I think, nope, they sure didn't. I just wanted to show you all what I thought the future of the product line could look like. I'm an industrial designer in Raleigh, North Carolina. And they go, "Oh, okay. I think we need to talk. We love it." Or if they hated it, then they never called me anyway. But that is something we call it going fishing, throwing it out there and just seeing if we get a nibble, and then you reel them in as a client if they like it. And so through a down period of time, our business for years had its best year every year. And if you think about what that means, we never shrunk. We only ever grew in money, in people, in space, in equipment, capability, in just mindset, teamwork, every metric you could measure. From 2007 all the way to 2022 grew every year. And I remember talking to a friend of mine who also owns a business, totally different business. And I said, "Yeah, we've had our best year every year, actually." He asked me how things were going. And he goes, "Wait a minute, you've never had a down year?" And I said, "No, we haven't." And he goes, "Well, there's a lot you don't know. There's a lot you haven't learned." And, little arrogant me, I'm sitting there thinking, maybe there's a lot you don't know. Actually, we're able to pull that off and you're apparently not. And man, was I wrong. So I learned pretty quickly in our absolute hands down best year ever, 2023, we almost doubled what we had done the year prior. And the reason why, we had a major, major project that came our way for the best, biggest, highest budget, basically the best thing I think we've ever done. We knew when we took it on, this is going to be really tough. It's going to be a huge challenge. Our team's going to struggle with the volume of what has to be done here. Can we even take it on? And we made the decision, yeah, we're going to meet that challenge. I mean, there's a make hay while the sun shines mentality, but there's also a love for a challenge around here. Core value number 4 is never settle. And our team's really good at that. Well, we finished. For 2.5 years, we had been working on this thing. It went very well. Customers happy, we're happy, love the work. One of the best case studies we've ever had. I'm very excited because soon we'll be able to talk about that one in more detail and show it. It'll be on the front page of our website. Like, we'll make a big deal out of it. But we finished. And when we finished, it was a little bit more abrupt than we thought it would be. We knew we were going to wrap it up, but we didn't know it would be quite that quick. We knew that we hadn't hired anybody for that work specifically. We hadn't put all of our eggs in that basket. And yet, I had a lot of trouble through those years, especially that year, when we're so busy, we can't take on anything new because we have no capacity. Our whole team is busy with this big thing and other things, but mostly that big thing. In fact, I realized in retrospect, it was 52% of our revenue. Whoops.
Wow.
And I didn't realize that that was happening to that degree. I knew it was big, but I didn't know it was that big. And when we were done, everyone's kind of like ready for work, showing up in the morning. What do you want me to work on? And I'm scrambling because all of the business development work I had been doing was through the lens of having very little capacity. And so I wasn't chasing big things because we couldn't have done them. And what I learned that my friend so wisely told me I hadn't picked up is that what should have happened is we should have leveraged contractors to help either do that big project or do everything else other than that big project, so we could continue growing through a time when we couldn't do anymore. And instead, what we did is we relied on our team like we do. It's easier, it's more natural. Well, when we finished and they had very little to do, I just told them that. And I told them why. And I was honest with them and I trusted them to do the right thing with the information that, your leadership made a mistake. We did a big project. We made a lot of money. We kept everybody busy. We paid for people's new houses. There's new cars in the parking lot. Love it. And yet, during that time, we didn't do what we were supposed to be doing. The leadership. I did not do what I should have done. And because of that, we got a problem. And I need your help with that problem. I want you to think about what brands you want to work with If we're going to go find new business, why wouldn't it be what our team wants? So where do we find that? We go to our team. Who do you wish we could work with? Give me a list. Then we're going to invent a project that they could have asked us to do, but they haven't yet. We're going to do the work, use this downtime. Let's not sit on our hands. Let's use this time wisely. Boredom is cancerous around here. I've learned that. It's terrible for me personally also. So keeping everybody moving was strategic, if you could call it that, but getting them engaged and having the empathy to think, well, I actually want you to propose what you think our company should do for you or for the team you're on. What do all of you enjoy, And we chased the work that we actually wanted because our team spoke up because we asked them to. And we got it. We had our down year in 24. And this year will have been the best year we've ever had, built upon no customer above 9% of our business. And I'm so proud of that. And our team did, which is so cool because we got not just busy again, we got the best kind of busy. That's a very long way of saying the empathy of seeing our team and what they want and wanting them to have what they want. We were able to give them the trust that they did a great thing with, did the work, flexed our creative muscle to the people they wanted to see it. And it works. I mean, it doesn't work every time, but it only takes a few. We had a little bit of a hard lesson, a ton of hard work. And right now where we're at, let's hope it continues, is kind of launched out the other side of it.
What an incredible story. And the learning process your whole team must have gone through and feeling involved and creating their wish list of companies. And the fact that you actually reeled those folks in.
I think smarter, more experienced leaders would have known that before it had to play out, that's a thing that I now know it has to run in the background always. We've got to be doing some of that all the time, among other things. But I'm armed with that in a way that I got to demonstrate that for our leadership team also. So they even have reminded me, when we're busy, don't stop, don't take your foot off the gas. We will bring in contractors to do this if we have to, but don't let up.
I love that. And I think your transparency and vulnerability with your team and just confessing the mistake you made speaks to your core values as well. So let's talk a little bit about that as a way to wrap up the conversation, because I think what you've built here in your culture is incredibly unique, and you've created such a cohesive environment for the team. You even said to me as well how you want your employees to fulfill their dreams. And I think having them create a wish list of companies they really want to work for, that's part of that. So can you elaborate on that mission and also your core values?
Absolutely. I resisted the idea of having corporate core values for a long time. On the topic of not wanting to get real jobs, part of what we didn't want to do was have the trappings of what corporate life contains for a lot of people. Wear a badge on your belt, drink the Kool-Aid, have the branded mug at your desk, all that kind of stuff. And you got to experience things, I think, to get smarter. And I had to do that, where I realized that without core values in place, our team liked their job. We did good work, but there was very little to go on when it came time to measure who belongs on our team and who doesn't. And you can interview for talent, you can interview for technical know-how, but if you've got a values misalignment, it doesn't mean that that's a bad person. It just means that they value other things. And if we're clear about what our company is about, I had to go do, it felt like some kind of walkabout to figure out, well, that has to start somewhere. And am I reflecting on what I perceive among our team? Am I selfishly just saying what I value? Do I even know the answer to that question? And I kind of had to go through all the mental gymnastics to figure out what that list is. A lot of business books and things will tell you that you can't have too many because they'll get confusing. If everything's important, nothing's important. And it's hard because there's very noble values that you don't include that sound good. And we're not about fairness. But I think if I had to name 5, is fairness really one of the top 5? It's not that we're unfair, but if I think about ours and I think, well, number 1 is elevate each other and put people ahead of money, time, equipment, put them ahead of frustration and ambition. If our team is not happy, their work can't be good. Their job they won't get done well. They are just personally not happy. Our number 1 priority is to make our people happy. And that means so different a thing for different people. And it changes. That part is so hard because life changes around them, around all of us. And our team dynamics change and all of that. But if we are focused first on making sure that our team is happy, if our job is to make their life better than it would be without the business, then that's a great North Star that it sort of folds into every other thing we do. Number two is authenticity, where being authentic and actually saying what you mean. You can call it radical candor. It's an awesome book, a great mentality. We use it here all the time. It doesn't come without its challenges, but it's worth it. Where, if you tell me, I really don't like when you speak that loudly, I think our client can tell. I think it off-puts the room. People feel like they can't get a word in. And I say, well, you talk loudly too, Rebecca, like, how dare you? You just tried to give me a gift. You tried to help me. And I threw it back at you, and I trained you to never, ever do that again. And if you don't ever give me feedback that could help me, then you're never helping me. And that is horrible. But if I tell you, thank you, I'm sorry, I didn't realize I was doing that. Thank you. I'll work on that. I've now trained you to say, all right, well, then receive that well, actually. And we got to keep it within reason. That's, oh, by the way, you should probably brush your teeth better. Oh, by the way, you should, you don't want to hit everybody with that all at one time. But that authenticity in our team dynamics, the authenticity of the fact that we built the table you're sitting at, because we should. We know how to do that. We've got all that equipment. It's uniquely ours. The people who are a part of it will forever remember that every time they sit at it. It helps that it will never leave this room in one piece because it won't fit. There's some cool little Easter eggs that get inbuilt when you're very authentic in the work you're doing with each other. Our unique five, they are truly uniquely ours. If we made them big, bold things like innovation, is that a bad value? No, it's not bad. But I don't know what to tell our team to do with that value. Whereas never settling, another one of our values, I can tell you exactly what I mean by knowing whether the thing's truly done to what it should be, not what you can do. But our team is way better as a team than anybody is individually. When do you need to go ask for help and not settle for what was as good as I could do? But I kind of don't think I'd be happy with it if I were them. I just don't know what else to do. That's a moment where a tap on the shoulder, a calling of a meeting, speaking up to a creative director, getting help, watching a YouTube video, whatever it takes to get unstuck from that situation. That's the kind of value that you can use. Innovation is not one. Teamwork is not one. You can distill them down into meaningful things that you can use. But I think that unless they're truly actionable, ours all come with a descriptor. When we say never settle, we say create from your core. When we say elevate each other, we say put our people first, put our clients' people first. When we talk about pride in process, number 5, we talk about passion for the craft, enjoying the doing of the thing, not just the end product. We want that to be good, but it will be good. It's like if the people are happy, the work will be good. If the work is good, the end product will be good. Mm-hmm. So we talk about the process. It's written upstairs in our studio in 9-foot letters, painted on the wall, pride in process. Which I think is so cool.
I love that. And speaking of things written on the wall, I don't know if our listeners can see what's on the wall behind me. It's a quote: "Only work with people you'd invite to your home for a meal," by Garth Walker. And I saw this quote when I was in here a couple of months ago, and it immediately struck me. And I think it's a testament to what you've developed here as a culture. And it also ties back to what you did with your fishing project of thinking about those customers you want to sit at the table with for dinner and then going after them. And so that mentality, all the values being more than just a fancy poster on the wall with some really motivated people going for a hike up a mountain. I feel like that's what you always see in corporate. That's right. You see like a framed picture of someone doing a hike with some team members, and
it's useless. Motivated. It's I realized through that part of my personal values, usefulness is actually one of them. I hate useless things. I don't enjoy that. And yeah, you're exactly right. Your typical motivational poster. We actually have a couple of demotivational posters upstairs that are hilarious. As a reminder that we kind of can't fall into that prepackaged, canned motivational statement that you can't use.
Well, there you have it. The industrial designer, or what he would call not a real job. But clearly this is a fun place to be. And a wonderful environment to work in, to play in, and drive business success as well. So I love that you're able to combine all those ingredients together to create wonderful outcomes for your customers, but also for your employees. So thank you for joining
Yeah, of course.
me today.
Thanks. I appreciate it.
If you enjoyed this podcast and would like to hear more, please subscribe wherever you like to listen to podcasts. And if you would like to learn more about the Empathy Collective, check out our website, theempathycollective.com. Life is too short. Let's take care of each other at work so that together we can make this world a better place.